Hey everybody, it's Jesse Weber and welcome back to Law and Crime Now. We have a big show today and we're going to pick up where we last left off on Friday with the Ahmaud Arbery shooting. As you know, two men, a father and son, Gregory and Travis McMichael, have been arrested and charged with murder and aggravated assault in connection with the shooting of this unarmed jogger. It was 74 days since that shooting took place to this arrest, and only after the Georgia Bureau of Investigations got involved, or the GBI. Now, we have some big developments that happened since our Friday show. Number one, the Georgia Attorney General has asked the Department of Justice to get involved in the case. Plus, this new footage seemingly showing Arbery at a construction site moments before this incident took place has surfaced. And the question is, what does all of this mean? Well, we're going to break down everything, but before we do anything, let's start with the shooting itself. I warn our viewers, if you haven't seen this, it is highly disturbing. Here's a portion of it. All right, let's get into this right now. From the Law&Crime Network, I have with me Terry Austin and Linda Kenny Bodden, and from arguably the best law school in the United States, Professor Kirk Burkhalter from New York Law School. It's great to have you all here. I have a great team for me today to talk about this really, really sad and important case. Linda, I want to start with you. So this surveillance footage, which I think we're showing you right now, surfaced, and it shows a man that appears to be Arbery walking into this site, this construction site, or apparently this property that was under construction. And then a short while later is when the shooting takes place. Now, the question, of course, is A, is this Arbery? B, what does this mean in terms of, because the defendants in this case had made the argument, well, we thought he was a burglar. It was our right to try to stop him. And who knows what he was up to. Now, it should be noted that it has come forward that the property owner has said that his property has never been burglarized whatsoever. Linda, what do you make of this?
Well, you know what? You can't see what you can see. He's wearing a beautiful new white T-shirt, right? All pressed. You can see him shorts, running. Where is he going to put the 2x4s? Where is he going to take the construction materials? Running down the street, putting them. There is simply no place for him to put anything. So it's really kind of dirtying him up and trying to say, well, because he was in the site, that gives you an opportunity to make a citizen's arrest and then kill him. I think not, Jesse.
Well, Professor, I want to ask you about this, the terms of a defense here. And I know this is a strange case because don't citizens in Georgia have the right to make arrests if they see somebody doing something illegal? How is that defense going to work here? If it comes out that they were entirely wrong and that they, there's one thing to say they purposely shot this man because they hated him or it was a hate crime, and we'll get into that in a minute. Or if they legitimately thought he was a burglar but they were mistaken, how does that play, that defense?
Well, I think that's a great question because in my mind, this is murder. And the defense of making a citizen's arrest and so forth is what the defendants are using to mitigate the charge of murder or to provide some form of excuse. But this is an intentional killing. Now, under Georgia law, arguably, at best, given that video, and we don't have all the evidence, he was committing a trespass, which really wouldn't fall under this citizen's arrest law. Let's remember that these citizen's arrest laws were promulgated primarily to assist retailers in their attempts to detain persons who are shoplifting. It was never contemplated by the Georgia legislature that someone would go out and patrol the neighborhood and so forth. And the laws certainly don't authorize the use of deadly physical force. And the only other point I want to make is with regards to burglary, this word has been used quite often. There's no evidence of a burglary here. At best, trespass. In almost all jurisdictions, one has to have the intent to commit some form of felony or arguably misdemeanor in a dwelling prior to being charged with burglary. And just going on that video alone, even if he's trespassing, as Linda clearly pointed out, given his attire, there is no evidence of any intent to commit any form of crime, nor was there any evidence that he was carrying anything when he left the home. So I don't know how well this video will help out the defendants. And even if it did, they certainly were not necessarily authorized to perhaps make an arrest under these terms, or even at most using any form of deadly physical force.
Right. And I want to go back now to Friday, to the press conference that was held by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. We heard the director, Vic Reynolds, make some statements, and we're going to have a series of them to play right now. And we want to get into this idea of what happened to the investigation in February and why did the GBI get involved? Take a look.
It had gotten to a good point. My understanding in speaking to my folks is that it was a good investigation. It was a thorough investigation. It doesn't mean there were some things that we believe need to be done that hadn't been done. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful sense to the people who worked it, but you could get 10 agencies to work a case, and they may work it 10 different ways and still arrive at the same place. So there were some things that we thought needed to be done that were done yesterday. There's some things that will continue to be done that perhaps haven't been done. We'll go back and review things that have been done to make sure they don't need to be tightened up in any fashion. But there's no complaining by my folks about what has been done to this point.
Would you guys be involved if it weren't for this video that surfaced this evening?
I don't know. We only become involved. So one thing about our agency, we can only statutorily become involved when we're asked to become involved. You know, and we don't work off of a timeline. In a perfect world, would we prefer to have been asked to become involved in February? Of course. But sometimes it isn't a perfect world. So we have to deal with the situation as it's placed in front of us.
Terry, I want to turn to you. Let's look at the subtext of this. What is he saying exactly? Were there mistakes made? He seems to say that he wanted the GBI involved earlier.
It does seem to me that there were mistakes made, and I think he's being very diplomatic about it. He's trying to say they'll look into it, they'll make sure that what needed to be done was done, and obviously if they did things they shouldn't have done, that should be disclosed at some point in time. But he's being very careful in saying, look, this is when I got the case, this is what I'm doing now. He can't say that the others have done wrong or should have brought the prosecution and the rest earlier. He's just saying, look, I'm here, I'm going to handle it, and if anything was untowards, then you'll know when I know, basically.
And clearly people believe that nothing would have happened if this video ultimately wasn't released. Linda, let me turn it to you. Why does the state attorney general, the Georgia attorney general, want the involvement of the Department of Justice at this point?
Well, the Department of Justice has two things. One, it has hate crime statutes, which Georgia is one of the 4 states in the United States that do not. And hate crime statutes mean that a crime is committed motivated by usually, as most of the crimes in the past 4 years have been, usually by race or color. Okay. The second reason is they're going to investigate, it appears to me in the new statement from the Attorney General of the state of Georgia, Mr. Carr, the investigation itself and the handling. That seems to sound like they're going to look into the prosecutors at this point, Jesse, and not just whether or not this case was handled well in the investigation to determine if a crime was committed by the father and the son.
And, Linda, real quick, 30 seconds, want to stay on you. We know a new prosecutor was just assigned to the case after Mr.
Right.
Durden, who was at that press conference Friday. What do we know about this new prosecutor?
Joyette Holmes, another DA. She has the reputation. She's African-American. She has the reputation as being tough and fair. And so we're going to see whether or not she is tough and fair, and she's going to go after anybody who may have done a wrongdoing, Jesse.
Well, clearly people are skeptical of what this investigation ultimately looked like and who might be responsible and were things done. I mean, well, how could it be possible 3 prosecutors were ultimately assigned here, and why were that arrests not back in February, but it took 74 days? Well, when we come back, we're going to play you more of the GBI press conference from Friday where Director Vic Reynolds was asked these really tough questions about what happened, and maybe more importantly, what can we expect next in the investigation? Stay tuned here on Law&Crime Now. We'll be right back.